Yeah, that's right. So now I'm gonna ask you, what is life like about being a parent? Because I think it sounds very interesting that you're an actual parent with actual neurodiverse children. So what is that like?
Yeah, it definitely is interesting. I think because I learned about myself at an older age and I do this for work, I really wanted my daughter to have that same understanding, right? Because I'm sure you know, living in kind of a darkness is a tricky place to be in, especially if people see the difficult quote unquote behaviors and don't understand the experience, because autism is a lot of the time really invisible. So once I started seeing signs in my daughter, I wanted her to get formally assessed as soon as possible so that we can, support her and understand her and so that she could understand herself. And I find being a parent and a psychologist is a interesting thing to balance when I go into the school meetings at schools. One of the schools which I used to work for the same board actually a long while back. And so really just advocating for her and being her person and trying to get the school to understand her experience because maybe they see a meltdown or maybe they see a hard day, but they don't understand the why behind it. And so I think as her mom, my job is really to help them understand and help them have that neuro-affirming approach to things so that they can honor her experience, so that they could understand her beyond the difficulties that they see. In the home environment, definitely can be tricky, right? Definitely we have our moments, especially being a neurodivergent household. You know, sometimes she's overstimulated. Sometimes it makes me overstimulated too. I'm a human. And so really, I do think protecting my own peace is really important and taking care of myself so I don't feel overwhelmed, and knowing when I need a break, right? But trying to support her and understand and, keep moving forward. I do have her in therapy. I think that is very helpful, right? For her to learn certain things that she probably doesn't want to learn from mom and dad or any other family member, right? But I always say that sometimes it's kind of like throwing spaghetti at a wall, right? Life has ups and downs. It's not one size fits all. It's not the same. We may learn each other and then we have to adapt. So with my daughter, it's kind of like throwing things and seeing what sticks, right? What is helpful in this situation? Knowing when I need to back down, knowing when she may need alone time. Because sometimes when we are overwhelmed, we don't have the words, right? And so I kind of try to navigate it as best as I can. And then the next day or the next week, it may not be the same, but it really is about adapting, right? Not trying to do the same thing over and over again and seeing that, okay, right now I'm approaching her and she's getting more upset. I'm not gonna keep doing that. I'm not gonna poke a bear, right? If I see that she's overwhelmed, that's my sign that I need to back down. And so yeah, I think it's a beautiful experience. I think it's been lovely to have that ability to understand her in a way that may be tricky for others to understand. I think it has been tough because sometimes it doesn't go along normal parenting rules, right? Or what we consider to be normal. Sometimes I might be seen as a easy parent, so to speak. But really, my approach is to how do I make her feel good about herself? How do I support her, right? How can we have, yes, certain parameters or boundaries that are important for safety and other things, but how can I still, help her during this hard time? And always remembering that I'm 30 years old, you know, a little bit older than 30, but I'm in my 30s and my brain has had a long time to develop, right? This is hard for me in this moment, let alone a child, let alone her. Her brain hasn't had that time to develop just yet. And so, what can we do together? Maybe I need to bend my way of thinking to understand her a little bit more. And so, I think it's always important to approach the situation from a place of compassion, try to speak to the her in a way that is not threatening, that's not overwhelming, and knowing when I'm at my limit and I need a break so that that frustration doesn't show in my body cues or anything. Because a lot of neurodivergent folks, we are very sensitive to that, right? And so if we see an adult get upset with us, or if we see even just a subtle expression in their face, it can make us feel worse, and then we may escalate. So it's like dancing, a fine line. There are beautiful times, there are wonderful times. My daughter asks phenomenal questions. Her brain is always thinking about the why. She questions things that I've never even questioned. And I believe that when she finds her passion and her interest, she will do great things with it. But of course, there are the tough times that we're kind of trying to weather through together so that things can get better as her brain continues to grow and she continues to learn how to help herself feel better too.
Wow, that definitely sounds a lot like me right there. I also have some certain needs with my life. Like there's certain things that I do every day. Like I have certain stims, I keep a certain schedule and routine. Yeah, there are numerous things that I need in my life when it comes to being neurodivergent myself. And I also like to think of life as a roller coaster with ups and downs and even loop-de-loops.
It sure is, yeah. And it's great that you've learned, what you need, right? And that's what we're trying to do here, kind of figure out, okay, what do we all need? What are those routines? What are those regulating behaviors that we do, stimming? How makes us feel better? But then also being mindful that, yeah, life is a loop-de-loop. And so maybe one day things will not go as planned. And then we know, okay, today's going to be a trickier day. What can we do as plan B to help ourselves feel better and get through the day?
Yep, that's right. Because everybody has tough times in their days, and that's why we need to figure out what is it that we really need so we can keep moving forward and leave those tough and tricky times in the past, because that's what not giving up is all about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I do my best to go to bed every night and wake up in the morning and tell myself, that today is a new day. I'm on a new foot. I have a do-over, so to speak. What happened yesterday doesn't mean it's going to happen today. And really just take each new day as it comes without being stuck in the previous day. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think it's really important as well. You are such a great advocator. You really speak well about getting a label for neurodiversity. You really talk well about being a parent. You really talk well about how someone can deal with anxiety or depression, or if they're burned out from masking and trying to fit in, and even what they can do to understand their neurodiversity.
Thanks, Jacob. It is my interest. I really love learning about this and I feel really passionate about it. And so really my goal is just to spread that awareness so people can understand beyond what they see. And also for maybe if someone else out there is like us and maybe they're struggling with similar things so that they can maybe start to be curious and maybe lead that journey for them to be able to identify their own life story in a way that makes sense.
Yep, that's right. So, is there anything that you would say to someone who's just learning they have something like autism or the ADHD or even Asperger's, which are gifted or neurodivergent and feels both relieved and scared? Like, what would you say?
I think that that's a normal response, right? I think either we're going into an assessment thinking, I have this and it's confirmed, or either we're going into an assessment and we're not expecting it, right? With that, receiving any kind of new information, especially when we're neurodivergent, can throw us a little off guard, right? It can be surprising. It can be confusing, right? We don't understand what this means. This is so new. I haven't been able to accept it. If depending on our age, right, that can make us feel sad for a previous version of us that maybe struggled or got in trouble because we weren't paying attention or because we were so overwhelmed that we yelled or threw something, right? Maybe that can make us feel bad for the version that was in trouble and was not understood by people around us. Maybe it can make us feel upset and angry and frustrated that we didn't get that support early on and that, we had to work so hard or we had to do it all alone. But I think a big part of it is that oftentimes when we reach this point and we have this information and we have all of these feelings, it also gives us that sense of hope, right? Like, okay, finally, I feel like I'm understood. Finally, someone understands this disaster, chaos, this mess that's in my brain. And about that is like finding that community, right? That we're not alone. There are many individuals that are similar in certain ways, maybe different in others, but there is that community. I think social media, podcasts, what you're doing, all of that is wonderful to bring that sense of belonging and community, which we so, so, so need. And I think a big part of it is that it doesn't change anything about us, right? Having this name doesn't change a single thing. We're still who we are. And there's nothing wrong with us. It doesn't mean that we need to be fixed. It doesn't mean that something's wrong with us, but rather it gives us information for how can we make the environment better, right? What can we do to change the environment?
That's right. There are many things how there are many things we can do to change the world, and it's really interesting how neurodiversity really does that. And I also feel like um adults are kind of missing out on something that us neurodiverse people are going through. And I think pets and animals really understand what neurodiverse people are going through in some ways that humans can't.
Yeah, I that's a wonderful point. Yes, and I often recommend animals, whether it's like a service animal or a therapy animal, definitely they can provide that sense of comfort and support. And even things like equine therapy with horses, right? It really can be helpful. There's so many wonderful calming things about animals and just the way that they can pick up on those little slight tendencies and really just be there in a way that is very different than humans.
Yeah, definitely sounds super special. And that's why I love spending time with my dog. She is really special to my life, and I always love to see her happy wagging tail whenever I walk in the room.
Ah, that's great. Well, Jacob, I'm so glad to hear that, you have had this wonderful experience. I am curious where we can find your books.
Yeah, I'm very glad we had similar experiences in our lives too, and we were able to talk about what was going on with our lives. And I'm very glad that I was able to talk to such a great psychologist and the founder of Thrive Psychology Health Team. And I'm very glad that you were able to talk about getting neurodiverse labels and how everyone's brain works differently, and most importantly, how we live with getting a label of neurodiversity. This was special.
Oh, thank you, Jacob. I enjoyed it as well.
Yep, I really did enjoy it too.